Welcome back to the channel everyone, and a huge thank you for tuning in today because you are about to dive into one of the most fascinating modern coin stories ever discussed in the world of numismatics, a story that sounds almost unbelievable at first but becomes more compelling with every detail. Today we are talking about the legendary 2015 P5 coin. A coin that on its face looks like an ordinary Jefferson nickel you might have jingling in your pocket or forgotten in a jar, yet, according to collectors, error specialists, speculative valuations, and hypothetical scenarios discussed across the coin collecting world, this very coin has been associated with a jaw-dropping potential value of up to $13 million, and the reason behind this astonishing figure lies not in gold content or ancient history but in the world of minting errors, production mistakes, rare combinations of anomalies, and the powerful psychology of rarity and demand that can turn a common coin into an object of obsession. And as we explore this story together, remember that the modern minting process is designed to produce billions of nearly identical coins with microscopic precision, so when something goes wrong in just the right way, the result can be extraordinary, and the 2015 P5 represents a perfect storm of possibilities: real documented errors, theoretical extreme errors, transitional varieties, planchet anomalies, die issues, and mint process failures that together have fueled one of the most talked about modern error coin narratives. Starting with the basics, the 2015 P5 was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P mint mark, which in modern times is often absent on nickels but still understood by collectors as the Philadelphia issue, and this coin carries the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse. Yet beneath this familiar design lies a complex manufacturing process involving blanking, annealing, upsetting, die preparation, striking pressure calibration, quality control, and metal composition consistency, and any disruption in this process can create an error, some minor and some spectacular, and one of the most discussed error categories for the 2015 P5 involves planchet errors, because the nickel planchet itself is a layered alloy composed primarily of copper with nickel content, and if the alloy mixture is improperly blended, contaminated, or incorrectly rolled, the resulting blank can produce a coin with incorrect weight, unusual coloration, weak strike characteristics, or even magnetic properties, and collectors have speculated about 2015 P nickels struck on experimental or wrong alloy planchets, including the theoretical possibility of being struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin. And while such errors are exceedingly rare, history has shown that wrong planchet errors can command 6- and 7-figure prices under the right conditions, and when collectors imagine a perfect example of a 2015 P5 struck on a wrong planchet such as silver-colored alloy, aluminum bronze, or even a transitional composition not meant for circulation, the speculative value can skyrocket into the millions, especially if the error is unique or one of only a handful known. Another major category fueling the $13 million discussion is the possibility of a dramatic double die error, where the design elements are duplicated due to misalignment during the die creation process, and while modern doubled dies are less common due to improved technology, they are not impossible, and a strong doubled die obverse on Jefferson's eye, nose, hair, or lettering combined with a doubled die reverse affecting Monticello could create a visually stunning and immediately recognizable error. And if such a doubled die were accompanied by other errors such as off-center striking or die rotation, the coin would transcend ordinary error classification and become a multi-error masterpiece. And in the world of elite collectors, multi-error coins with dramatic visual impact are often the most fiercely contested, driving prices far beyond what casual observers would expect. Another layer of intrigue comes from die cap and brockage possibilities, where a coin becomes stuck to a die and strikes subsequent coins, creating ghostly mirror images or distorted impressions. And if a 2015 P5 were found with a full obverse or reverse brockage combined with a rotated die or partial collar error, it would represent an extremely rare survival, as most such errors are caught and destroyed by the mint, and the value of such a coin would be limited only by the willingness of collectors to compete for ownership, which in high-end auctions can push prices into astonishing territory. Then there is the concept of missing clad layer or improper bonding, which, although more commonly associated with cents, has been discussed in relation to nickels as well. especially if the alloy layers separate or fail to bond properly, resulting in coins that peel, split, or display exposed inner metal, and a 2015 P5 cent exhibiting a dramatic bonded layer failure could appear unlike any normal nickel, sparking intense interest from error specialists, and if such an error were paired with full mint luster, minimal circulation wear, and professional certification, the price could escalate rapidly, and beyond physical errors. There is the idea of mule coins, which occur when mismatched dies are used, such as an obverse from one denomination and a reverse from another, and while no confirmed 2015 P nickel mule of this type has been publicly documented, the mere theoretical possibility drives speculation, because known mules from other years have sold for millions, and a confirmed mule involving a 2015 P5 cent would instantly become one of the most famous modern U.S. coins ever discovered, potentially justifying eight-figure valuations due to its uniqueness, historical significance, and cross-denomination curiosity. Another angle involves transitional errors, where old and new design elements overlap during a change in dies or production standards, and while 2015 did not introduce a major nickel redesign, there were still subtle die refinements, relief adjustments, and production experiments that could theoretically result in transitional features, such as mismatched fonts, unusual spacing, or hybrid design characteristics, and collectors who specialize in die varieties pay close attention to these anomalies, because they can represent undocumented mint experiments or transitional phases, and when such a coin is discovered years later, it can rewrite numismatic understanding of mint practices for that period, adding scholarly value to its market value. And speaking of market value, the concept of $13 million is not simply pulled from thin air but reflects the extreme upper end of what could happen if multiple extraordinary factors align, including uniqueness, dramatic visual error, pristine condition, strong provenance, media attention, and competitive auction dynamics, because in the modern era, coins that capture the public imagination can transcend traditional collector circles and attract investors, museums, and wealthy individuals seeking iconic artifacts. And a 2015 P5 cent error coin dubbed the most valuable modern nickel ever found would certainly fit that profile, and the story becomes even more compelling when we consider the psychology of rarity, because billions of nickels were produced in 2015, yet the idea that one single coin among them could be so profoundly different feeds into the treasure hunt mentality that drives collectors to search rolls, inspect pocket change, and scrutinize every detail under magnification. And this constant searching keeps the legend of the 2015 P5 cent alive, with every new discovery fueling online discussions, speculative videos, and auction watch lists. And another factor that amplifies value potential is the role of third-party grading and authentication, because a coin certified by a respected grading service with a clear description of its errors and an assigned grade can command exponentially higher prices than an uncertified example. And if a hypothetical 2015 P5 cent with multiple extreme errors were graded at a high mint state level, its combination of technical rarity and condition rarity would place it in an elite category occupied by only a handful of modern coins, and condition matters immensely because even the most dramatic error loses appeal if it is heavily damaged or worn, whereas a sharp, lustrous example with clear details and minimal contact marks becomes a showpiece worthy of museum display. And then there is the influence of storytelling, because coins are not just metal discs but historical artifacts, and a coin with a compelling narrative, such as slipping through quality control during a year of record production or representing a rare mint mishap during a period of technological transition, gains intangible value that collectors are willing to pay for. And the 2015 P5 cent sits at the intersection of modern mass production and the enduring possibility of human and mechanical error, making it a symbol of how imperfection can create extraordinary worth. And as collectors imagine scenarios involving struck-through errors where grease, cloth, or metal shavings block parts of the design, or dramatic off-center strikes that still show full dates and mint identifiers, the list of potential high-value variations grows longer. Next, 2003 P5 cent coin. Today we are diving deep into the fascinating legend of the 2003 P5 cent, a Jefferson nickel that most people would never give a second glance, yet within numismatic discussions it has become associated with an astonishing potential value of up to $11 million. And this mind-blowing figure does not come from fantasy alone but from the convergence of minting errors, production mistakes, rare anomalies, and the powerful forces of scarcity, demand, and collector psychology that can elevate a common coin into a once-in-a-generation discovery. And as we begin this journey, it is important to understand that the United States Mint in 2003 was operating at an immense scale, producing hundreds of millions of nickels using high-speed, high-precision machinery designed to ensure uniformity, consistency, and quality. Yet history has repeatedly shown that even the most advanced systems are not immune to failure, and when those failures occur in just the right way and escape quality control, the result can be a coin so unusual that it captures the imagination of collectors around the world, and the 2003 P5 cent sits squarely at the center of this possibility, beginning with the context of the year itself, because 2003 was a transitional period in U.S. coinage, just before the introduction of the Westward Journey nickel series that would debut in 2004, and during this time the Mint was experimenting with dies, preparing new designs, adjusting reliefs, and managing production changes behind the scenes. And whenever a mint is in a transitional phase, the likelihood of unusual errors increases, as old and new processes briefly overlap, and this backdrop is critical to understanding why the 2003 P5 cent is so often discussed in connection with extraordinary error potential. One of the most important categories of errors associated with this coin involves planchet anomalies, because the 5-cent coin is struck on a copper-nickel alloy planchet that must meet very strict specifications for weight, thickness, and composition, and any deviation in this process can produce blanks that are underweight, overweight, improperly mixed, or contaminated, and collectors have long speculated about the existence of 2003 P nickels struck on wrong planchets, including planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins produced at the mint, and history has shown that wrong planchet errors can command staggering prices when authenticated, especially if the error is dramatic and clearly identifiable, and if a confirmed 2003 P5 cent were discovered struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, such as a cent planchet, a dime planchet, or an experimental alloy, the resulting coin would instantly become one of the most important modern era nickels ever known, because it would represent a failure at multiple stages of the minting process, and if such a coin displayed full or nearly full design details, the visual impact alone could propel it into the realm of multi-million-dollar valuations. Another major factor fueling the legend of the $11 million 2003 P5 cent is the possibility of dramatic die errors, particularly double dies, which occur during the die creation process when misalignment causes design elements to be duplicated. And while modern technology reduced the frequency of such errors, it did not eliminate them entirely, and a strong double die obverse on a 2003 P nickel affecting Jefferson's portrait, the date, or the lettering would immediately attract attention, especially if the doubling were bold enough to be seen with the naked eye, and when collectors encounter a double die that is both visually striking and rare, demand increases dramatically, and if such a double die were combined with other anomalies such as die cracks, cuds, or die breaks, the coin would cross into the elite category of multi-error coins, which are among the most coveted items in error collecting, and it is precisely these rare combinations that drive speculative valuations into the millions, because collectors place enormous premiums on coins that capture multiple failures of the minting process in a single object. And beyond double dies, there is the category of off-center strikes, where the planchet is not properly aligned when struck, resulting in a coin with part of the design missing and blank metal visible. And while minor off-center strikes are not especially rare, dramatic off-center strikes that still show the full date and identifiable design elements are far more valuable, and a 2003 P5 cent with a dramatic off-center strike combined with a partial collar error or broad strike would be visually stunning and extremely rare, and if such a coin were preserved in high mint state condition, competition among collectors could easily drive prices to extraordinary levels. And then there are brockage and die cap errors, which occur when a coin becomes stuck to a die and impresses its image onto subsequent planchets, creating mirror image impressions or heavily distorted designs, and these errors are typically detected quickly by mint workers, meaning surviving examples are scarce, and a full or near full brockage involving a 2003 P5 cent would be a sensational discovery, particularly if it retained clear design elements and minimal damage, and such a coin would likely become the centerpiece of any major era collection. With a value reflecting its rarity, visual impact, and historical significance, potentially reaching into the multi-million-dollar range under the right circumstances, another layer of fascination comes from the idea of mule coins, which are produced when mismatched dies are paired together, such as an obverse from one denomination and a reverse from another. And while no publicly confirmed mule involving a 2003 P5 cent has been documented, the possibility alone excites collectors, because known mules from other years have sold for enormous sums, and a genuine mule discovered from 2003 would rewrite numismatic history for that year, instantly becoming one of the most famous modern U.S. coins ever known, and such a coin would attract interest far beyond traditional collecting circles, drawing attention from museums, historians, investors, and the general public, all of which would push its value to unprecedented heights, and transitional errors also play a role in the legend of the 2003 P5 cent, because the mint was preparing for the design changes that would soon follow, and subtle differences in die engraving, lettering style, and relief depth can sometimes result in undocumented varieties, and a coin exhibiting hybrid features from different production phases could represent an important transitional piece, adding scholarly value that significantly enhances market value. Because coins that contribute new knowledge to the field of numismatics are often prized as much for their historical importance as for their rarity, and rarity is the key concept underlying the $11 million valuation, because while millions of normal 2003 P nickels were produced, only a tiny fraction of error coins survived, and among those, only an exceptionally small number would exhibit the kind of extreme, visually compelling, and historically significant errors capable of commanding such a price, and this is where collector psychology becomes crucial, because collectors are not simply buying metal, they are buying uniqueness, stories, and the emotional satisfaction of owning something that almost no one else can ever possess, and when a coin captures widespread attention, media coverage and online discussion can amplify demand, creating a feedback loop that drives prices even higher, especially in the modern era where discoveries can go viral overnight. And certification is another critical factor, because a coin authenticated and graded by a respected third-party service gains credibility, allowing buyers to compete with confidence, and a hypothetical 2003 P5 cent featuring multiple extreme errors, graded at a high mint state level, and accompanied by detailed documentation would sit at the pinnacle of modern era collecting, and condition cannot be overstated, because even the rarest error loses value if it is heavily worn or damaged, whereas a pristine example with sharp details and original luster becomes exponentially more desirable, and time also adds to the mystique, because coins discovered many years after their release raise intriguing questions about how they escaped detection, and such mystery enhances their appeal, and when all these elements are considered together, the idea of an $11 million 2003 P5 cent becomes easier to understand, not as a guarantee but as a reflection of what is possible when rarity, error complexity, condition, certification, provenance, and demand all align, and this is why collectors continue to search rolls, examine pocket change, and revisit old collections with hope, because history has shown that some of the most valuable coins ever discovered were hiding in plain sight, unnoticed for years, and the legend of the 2003 P5 cent serves as a powerful reminder that extraordinary value can still be found in the most ordinary places. And as you continue watching this channel and exploring the world of coin collecting, remember that knowledge and patience are your greatest tools, because the next legendary discovery could be waiting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or even your own pocket, ready to turn 5 cents into millions and rewrite the story of modern American coinage. Next, 1987 P5 cent coin. Today, because you are about to explore one of the most intriguing and mind-bending stories in modern American coin collecting, a story that proves how even a small 5-cent coin from the late 20th century can carry a value that rivals priceless works of art. Today our focus is on the legendary 1987 P5 cent coin. A Jefferson nickel that at first glance looks completely ordinary, the kind of coin most people would never think twice about spending, yet within the World of numismatics. This coin has become the center of extraordinary discussions, speculation, and fascination because under very rare and specific circumstances it has been associated with a staggering potential value of up to $12 million, and this unbelievable valuation is not based on fantasy alone but on a deep understanding of minting errors, production mistakes, rare combinations of anomalies, and the powerful forces of scarcity, demand, and collector psychology that can elevate a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And as we begin this journey, it is important to remember that the United States Mint in 1987 was operating at massive scale, producing billions of coins using highly mechanized systems designed to eliminate human error, yet history has proven time and again that no system is perfect, and when mistakes occur at the mint, especially mistakes that escape quality control and enter circulation, the results can be astonishing, and the 1987 P5 cent stands as a symbol of how imperfection can create extraordinary value. Starting with the context of the year itself, 1987 was a significant period for U.S. coinage because it fell within an era of evolving mint technology, tightening budgets, and adjustments in production processes that followed the economic and manufacturing shifts of the late 1970s and early 1980s. And the Philadelphia Mint, responsible for striking the 1987 P5 cent, was under pressure to maintain output while controlling costs, a situation that historically increases the likelihood of subtle and sometimes dramatic minting errors slipping through unnoticed, and this environment sets the stage for understanding how an otherwise ordinary nickel could become so valuable. One of the most important categories of error associated with the 1987 P5 cent involves planchet anomalies. Because the nickel planchet is composed of a copper-nickel alloy that must be precisely mixed, rolled, and punched to exact specifications, and any deviation in this process can create blanks that are underweight, overweight, improperly bonded, or contaminated with foreign metals, and collectors have long speculated about the existence of 1987 P nickel struck on wrong planchets, including planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coinage, and while such errors are extremely rare, documented examples from other years have sold for enormous sums, and if a confirmed 1987 P5 cent were discovered struck on an incorrect planchet such as a cent planchet, a dime planchet, or a foreign alloy blank, the resulting coin would immediately become one of the most important modern error coins ever known, especially if it displayed full design details and clear identification, and the value of such a coin could climb into the multi-million-dollar range due to its uniqueness and historical significance. Another major factor contributing to the legendary status of the 1987 P5 cent is the possibility of dramatic die errors, particularly double dies, which occur when the die itself receives multiple misaligned impressions during its creation, resulting in duplicated design elements that appear clearly on struck coins. And although double dies became less common with improvements in die manufacturing technology, they did not disappear entirely, and a strong doubled die obverse on a 1987 P nickel affecting Jefferson's portrait, the date, or the lettering could create a visually striking and immediately recognizable error, and when such a doubled die is bold enough to be seen without magnification, collector demand increases exponentially, and if such a doubled die were combined with other errors such as die cracks, cuds, or die breaks, the coin would become even more desirable, as multi-error coins are among the most prized objects in error collecting. And it is precisely these rare combinations that fuel the idea of a $12 million valuation, because the market places extraordinary premiums on coins that represent multiple failures of the minting process all captured on a single piece of metal. And beyond double dies, there is the realm of off-center strikes, where the planchet is not properly aligned during striking, resulting in a coin with part of the design missing and blank metal visible. And while minor off-center strikes are relatively common, dramatic off-center errors that still show the full date and mint attribution are far rarer and far more valuable, and a 1987 P5 cent with a dramatic off-center strike combined with other anomalies such as a broad strike or partial collar error would stand out as a visually stunning artifact. And when collectors encounter such a coin in high mint state condition, competition to acquire it can drive prices to astonishing levels. And another fascinating category involves brockage and die cap errors, where a coin becomes stuck to a die and impresses its image onto subsequent planchets. creating mirror image impressions or distorted designs, and these errors are usually caught quickly by mint workers, making surviving examples exceptionally rare, and if a full or partial blockage involving a 1987 P5 cent were discovered, especially one with clear and dramatic features, it would instantly become a centerpiece of any serious error collection. And the rarity of such an error surviving in pristine condition could easily justify a valuation in the millions, particularly if it were unique or one of only a handful known. And then there is the mysterious world of mule coins, which are produced when mismatched dies are accidentally paired together, such as an obverse from one denomination and a reverse from another, and while no confirmed mule involving a 1987 P5 cent has been publicly verified, the mere possibility captivates collectors. Because known mules from other years have achieved legendary status and enormous prices, and if a genuine mule involving a 1987 P. nickel were authenticated, it would rewrite numismatic history for that year and likely become one of the most valuable modern U.S. coins ever discovered, and such a coin would attract not only collectors but also museums, historians, and investors eager to own a piece of minting history that defies expectation. Another angle that adds to the intrigue is the potential for transitional errors, where design elements, die styles, or production standards from different periods overlap, and although 1987 did not mark a major redesign of the nickel, subtle changes in die engraving techniques, relief depth, and lettering styles occurred over time, and a coin exhibiting hybrid features from different production phases could represent an undocumented transitional variety, and such discoveries are highly valued because they expand our understanding of mint practices and add scholarly importance to the coin. And scholarly importance often translates directly into monetary value, especially when combined with extreme rarity. And speaking of rarity, it is crucial to understand that the value of the 1987 P5 cent in these extraordinary scenarios is driven not by how many were minted but by how few error examples exist, because billions of normal nickels were produced, yet only a tiny number of error coins escaped destruction, and among those, only an even smaller fraction exhibit the kind of dramatic, visually compelling, and historically significant errors that command top-tier prices. And this is where the psychology of collecting comes into play, because collectors are not merely buying metal, they are buying stories, uniqueness, and the thrill of owning something that almost no one else can ever have. And when a coin captures the imagination of the collecting community, media attention often follows, amplifying demand and pushing prices even higher. And in the modern era of online auctions, social media, and viral content, a single extraordinary discovery can reach millions of viewers overnight, creating a feeding frenzy of interest that drives valuations to unprecedented heights. And the idea of a $12 million 1987 P5 cent is rooted in this reality, where the intersection of rarity, error complexity, condition, certification, provenance, and publicity can produce results that seem impossible to outsiders but perfectly logical to seasoned collectors. And certification plays a crucial role in this process, because a coin authenticated and graded by a respected third-party grading service gains credibility and legitimacy, and when an error is clearly described and verified, buyer confidence increases dramatically, allowing prices to reach their full potential. And a hypothetical 1987 P5 cent with multiple extreme errors, graded in high mint state condition, and accompanied by detailed documentation would sit at the very top of the modern error coin hierarchy. And condition is especially important because many error coins suffer damage during circulation or mishandling, yet a pristine example with sharp details, original luster, and minimal marks becomes exponentially more valuable. Last, 1997 D5 cent coin. Today we are diving into another unbelievable yet endlessly fascinating story from the world of coin collecting, a story that challenges everything most people think they know about spare change. Today we are exploring the legend of the 1997 D5 cent coin, a Denver Mint Jefferson nickel that appears completely ordinary at first glance. A coin that millions of people have held, spent, or ignored over the years, yet within numismatic circles it has become associated with an extraordinary potential valuation of up to $10 million, and this incredible figure is not based on face value or precious metal content but on the powerful combination of minting errors, production mistakes, rare anomalies, historical context, and collector psychology that can transform a simple 5-cent piece into one of the most sought-after modern coins imaginable. And as we begin this deep exploration, it is important to understand that the United States Mint in 1997 was operating at massive capacity, producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet everyday circulation demand, using advanced machinery designed to produce uniform coins with incredible precision. Yet as history has repeatedly proven, even the most sophisticated systems can fail, and when they do, the resulting mistakes can create numismatic treasures of staggering value, and the 1997 5-cent stands as a perfect example of how rarity is not always about age but about circumstance, because this coin was born during a time of intense production pressure, technological transition, and evolving quality control standards, all of which created the ideal environment for rare errors to slip through unnoticed, beginning with the Denver Mint itself, which is identified by the D Mint mark on the coin, and the Denver facility has long been known for its high output levels, meaning that speed and efficiency were often prioritized to keep up with demand, and while quality control was rigorous, the sheer volume of coins being produced increased the likelihood that unusual planchets, misaligned dies, or improperly prepared blanks could occasionally make it through the system, and this is where the story of the 1997 5-cent begins to take on legendary proportions. One of the most significant error categories associated with this coin involves planchet errors. Because the 5-cent coin is struck on a copper-nickel alloy planchet that must meet strict specifications for weight, thickness, and composition, and any deviation in this process can result in coins that are underweight, overweight, improperly bonded, or composed of the wrong metal entirely, and collectors have long speculated about the existence of 1997 nickel struck on wrong planchets, including planchets intended for other denominations such as cents or dimes, or even foreign planchets produced at the Denver Mint under contract, and while such errors are extraordinarily rare, history has shown that wrong planchet coins can command enormous prices when authenticated, especially if they display full design details and clear identification, and if a confirmed 1997 5-cent were discovered struck on an incorrect planchet, the resulting coin would instantly become one of the most important modern era nickels ever documented, because it would represent a breakdown at multiple stages of the minting process. And if such a coin were unique or one of only a handful known, its value could easily climb into the multi-million-dollar range, fueling the idea of a $10 million valuation. Another major factor contributing to the legendary status of the 1997 5-cent is the possibility of dramatic die errors, particularly double dies, which occur during the die creation process when misalignment causes design elements to be duplicated. And although modern die-making technology greatly reduced the frequency of such errors, it did not eliminate them entirely, and a strong double die obverse on a 1997 nickel affecting Jefferson's portrait, the date, or the lettering would be immediately noticeable and highly desirable, especially if the doubling were bold enough to be seen without magnification, and when collectors encounter such an error, demand increases dramatically, and if a double die were combined with other anomalies such as die cracks, cuds, or retained die breaks, the coin would move into the elite category of multi-error coins, which are among the most coveted items in all of error collecting, and it is precisely these rare combinations that drive speculative valuations into the millions, because collectors place enormous premiums on coins that capture multiple failures of the minting process on a single piece of metal. And beyond double dies, there is the category of off-center strikes, where the planchet is not properly aligned when struck, resulting in a coin with part of the design missing and blank metal visible. And while minor off-center strikes are relatively common, dramatic off-center strikes that still show the full date and mint mark are far rarer and far more valuable, and a 1997 5-cent with a dramatic off-center strike combined with a partial collar error or broad strike would be visually stunning and extremely scarce, and if such a coin were preserved in high mint state condition, competition among collectors could drive its value to extraordinary heights. And then there are brockage and die cap errors, which occur when a coin becomes stuck to a die and impresses its image onto subsequent planchets, creating mirror image impressions or severely distorted designs, and these errors are usually caught quickly by mint workers, making surviving examples exceptionally rare. and a full or near-full brockage involving a 1997 D5 cent would be a sensational discovery, especially if it retained clear design elements and minimal damage. And such a coin would likely become a centerpiece of any major error collection, with a value reflecting its rarity, visual impact, and historical importance, potentially reaching into the millions under the right circumstances. Another layer of intrigue surrounding the 1997 D5 cent involves the possibility of mule coins, which are produced when mismatched dies are accidentally paired together, such as an obverse from one denomination and a reverse from another. And while no publicly confirmed mule involving a 1997 D nickel has been verified, the mere possibility excites collectors, because known mules from other years have sold for astonishing sums, and a genuine mule discovered from 1997 would rewrite numismatic history for that year, instantly becoming one of the most famous modern U.S. coins ever known. And such a coin would attract attention far beyond traditional collecting circles, drawing interest from museums, historians, investors, and the general public, all of which would drive its value to unprecedented levels. And transitional errors also play a role in the fascination with the 1997 D5 cent, because the late 1990s were a period of gradual change in minting practices, including subtle adjustments in die engraving, relief depth, and quality control procedures, and a coin exhibiting undocumented hybrid features from different production phases could represent an important transitional variety, adding scholarly significance that greatly enhances market value, because coins that contribute new knowledge to the field of numismatics are often prized as much for their historical importance as for their rarity, and rarity is the foundation of the $10 million valuation discussion, because while hundreds of millions of normal 1997 D nickels were produced, only a tiny fraction of error coins survived, and among those, only an exceptionally small number would exhibit the kind of extreme, visually compelling, and historically significant errors capable of commanding such a price. And this is where collector psychology becomes a driving force, because collectors are not simply buying metal, they are buying uniqueness, stories, and the emotional satisfaction of owning something that almost no one else can ever possess. And when a coin captures widespread attention, media coverage and online discussion can amplify demand, creating a feedback loop that pushes prices higher and higher, especially in the modern era where discoveries can spread instantly across social media and auction platforms. And certification plays a critical role in this process, because a coin authenticated and graded by a respected third-party service gains credibility and legitimacy, allowing buyers to compete with confidence. And a hypothetical 1997 D5 cent featuring multiple extreme errors, graded in high mint state condition, and accompanied by detailed documentation would sit at the very top of the modern error coin hierarchy. And condition cannot be overstated, because even the rarest error loses value if it is heavily worn or damaged, whereas a pristine example with sharp details, original luster, and minimal marks becomes exponentially more valuable. And time adds yet another layer of mystique, because coins discovered decades after their release raise compelling questions about how they escaped detection for so long, and such mystery enhances their appeal and perceived importance. And when all of these elements are considered together, the idea of a $10 million 1997 D5 cent becomes easier to understand. Not as a guarantee but as a reflection of what is possible when rarity, error complexity, condition, certification, provenance, and demand all align in a perfect storm. And this is why collectors continue to search rolls, examine pocket change, and revisit old collections with hope and determination.